The Jewish Free School in North London asked the Supreme Court to overturn a ruling concerning a practicing Jewish man who wanted to enrol his son at the school. While the father is Jewish by birth, the boy's mother is Jewish by conversion at a progressive synagogue. The Chief Rabbi did not accept the validity of this conversion, and so the boy was denied a place. In June, the Court of Appeal ruled that the entry criteria did racially discriminate against the boy. And today the Supreme Court backed up that ruling, raising profound questions about whether a secular court should be able to overrule a religious authority on a question of religion or race.
Well, joining me in the studio is Rabbi Yitzhak Shoket, who's chair of the Rabbinical Council of the United Synagogue, and David Lightman, whose daughter has been unable to attend JFS on the same grounds as the boy in today's court case. I take it you don't like this judgment at all?
Needless to say, extremely disappointed, if not indeed a little bit angry. I think it's tragic on so many different levels, not least because it forces a position now on what is effectively the majority of the Jewish community. That can be conducive to communal harmony. It sows confusion within the school itself, where you're now going to have a broad mix of kids who are in their older years, adolescents, forming relationships where ultimately the parents of one may not be able to regard the other child as Jewish. It also denies places, in effect, for Jewish kids, when it's now allowing other kids who are not necessarily regarded as Jewish by the school by taking up those places. And above all else, it means that the law of the land is now imposing its own criteria in defining who is a Jew, effectively taking away the faith's autonomy in being able to establish its religious criteria.
What do you think of it? Because your daughter was not involved in this case, but it's a similar kind of story.
Absolutely right. Part of me is happy that after 5 long years, sense has been seen and victory has been achieved, but that's tempered by also a degree of sadness, but for different reasons to what Rabbi Shoket said. I think clearly what is the most distressing of all of this is it got to court in the first place, and the fact it got to the highest court in the land, I think, is frankly a disgrace.
But who did that?
Exactly, it's a very good question. It only got there because of the obduracy and the stubbornness of the Chief Rabbi and the office of the Chief Rabbi. In our case, for example, we tried to talk to him for 5 years off the record as private individuals to find a resolution. He manifestly refused to do that, and like the family who took the case to court, that was the only way they could seek justice. And one point has to be made very clearly: this was not a case about who is and isn't a Jew. The Supreme Court justices made that very clear that it isn't the case. What this is a case about is that the oldest Jewish school in the country and the largest Jewish school in Europe, which is a state school, had admission criteria that were directly discriminatory. And the Supreme Court found that to be the case today, and so they ordered it to change the admission criteria. That's what the case was about.
There's obviously a lot in this, but I mean, at issue is not a question of religious identity, is it? In the law's eyes, it's about racial identity.
It's about racial identity in the context of a specific technicality within law itself. Let's be very clear. There were 9 judges on the Supreme Court. 4 ruled in favor of the school, so it's not so black and white,
it was very close.
It was very close.
With respect, it was not so close. If you look at the ruling, of the 9 judges, 7 found there to be discrimination. Of those 7, 5 were direct, 2 indirect, but 7 said there was religious discrimination. And if you look at the 13 judges with whom this case has gone in front throughout its history in the courts, 10 of those 13 found there to be racial discrimination. So racial discrimination is clear
in the context
and proven.
Of the Supreme Court today, 4 actually ruled, again, in favor of the school. 5 obviously ruled against the school, but even amongst those 5, they were very categorical in stressing the fact that this is in no way suggesting that Judaism is racist.
No,
this is in no way.
They didn't suggest that. But just the question that David Lightman just brought up there, it is a state school. It takes state money. It's not entirely a secular institution, is it? It's a religious institution. It's part of our secular society. So you accept that. So you have to accept this judgment.
But you see, that's the bigger issue. I have to accept the judgment on the basis of the law of the land. The bigger issue is, however, that government does fund a number of faith schools and ultimately allows for those faith schools to be able to determine criteria and who is allowed entry into that particular school. In Church of England schools, no less than within this particular Jewish school.
Not if they fly in the face of the law and are religiously discriminatory. I think there's a fundamental question at the heart of this, which is a deafening silence by the Chief Rabbi, who again is absent, which I asked Dr. Shoket directly to his face. My question is this: why is the Chief Rabbi so determined to spend hundreds of thousands upon hundreds of thousands of his members' fees pursuing this case through the court, taking it to appeal? Why is he so determined in order to stop 2 Jewish children getting an education in a Jewish state school. Why is he doing it?
Because this is not about 2 Jewish children. This is about defining who is a Jew. That goes to the core, to the very essence of what Judaism is really all about.
It's about a school that was
founded... When you're going to the very core of the essence of a faith, then to all intents and purposes, you don't put a price on ultimately defending that.
The
Chief Rabbi has to do what he has to do in order to be... No, it's your understanding of a perversion.
No, not at all.
But I put it to you that it's the height of hypocrisy when a movement that's been around for barely 100 years comes along and tries to impose its criteria on a community that has founded itself on a tradition of 3,500 years.
I'm not a movement. I'm a man who wants the best for my child. This is a school that was founded in 1732 for Jews of every denomination. It was hijacked in 1956 by the Office of the Chief Rabbi. It's a school that I went to for 7 years. It's a school my sisters and my cousin went to. It's a school where my wife has taught for over 20 years, is now head of the English department. It was good enough for all of us, but yet it won't let my daughter in. I find that absolutely an abomination, and I find that discriminatory, and the Supreme Court found it discriminatory, and I think what you should do is do what the Chief Rabbi said he's going to do, is have a period of reflection.
A period of reflection. I mean, there are clearly huge passions here and big implications for the Jewish community.
There are very big implications for the Jewish community at this point, but it still comes down to the bottom line that we have to ultimately defend the essence of the Jewish faith. And the essence of any religion is defining who constitutes a particular member of that faith. I appreciate that it's particularly a passionate issue for David, but the bottom line remains that even as you went to the school because you are a Jewish man, if in the eyes of the court of the Chief Rabbi, your daughter is not necessarily recognized as Jewish because, and again, I'm not here to judge you, I don't know the specifics of the case, but if that is the case, that if the Chief Rabbi defines in this particular instance that a child is not Jewish because it doesn't meet with Jewish law criteria, then the Chief Rabbi has to spend whatever it takes in order to be able to determine who comes into that school.
I'm sorry, David, we're going to have to leave it there. We've run out of time. I would love to tell you what's on tomorrow morning's front pages, but I haven't got them in front of me. So just before we go, tomorrow night our diplomatic correspondent Mark Urban will bring his special report on the 3 days he spent embedded with US Marines in Afghanistan as they launched an offensive to clear Taliban-occupied territory in one of the most dangerous parts of Helmand province. That's all from Newsnight tonight. Emily's in this chair tomorrow. Good night.